Okay, and we are returning. Having a couple issues with my picture, but hopefully that'll actually be working. Hopefully, we'll see. We'll see if this is actually going to work. We have a little guest behind us who's wants to be part of our stream today. So hopefully you won't be too noisy. Yeah. All right. All right. Well, maybe we'll put the window down just a little bit so you don't make a lot of noise. All right. I have a feeling that Tiger's going to stay out there though and listen to most of it. I was wrong. Well, maybe not. No, we'll see. He's gonna nest in and stay. Okay, so today I want to get back into a topic we haven't talked about in a long time, which is how literal our universe can be and how we can create a lot of stuff and we don't realize that's what we do. Now, I watched the show Shogun. And one of this week's episodes was something he said, and they actually, well, you said it, so we did it exactly like you said. It was like, don't kill this bird, and if you kill the bird, you're going to die, and then whoever kills the bird or takes the bird down dies, and someone took the bird down and they died, and he didn't really mean it, the person who said it, but because of the culture, and he was head of the household when he said it, that's what it meant. So it just got me kind of thinking about how literal all of our information is that we say. And it's not just what we say. A lot of times people, when we're in our human consciousness, we can get super confused on why things happen the way they do. Why realities get created the way we do. Why all of a sudden we're in one reality and we think we're going one direction, and then all of a sudden we get a big monkey wrench and we start to go a totally different direction. And we don't understand why that happens. Why is all of a sudden everything that felt like it was running smooth, all of a sudden I'm in a reality I don't want to be in. I have an unexpected person show up. I lose my job. Someone passes away. People just leave the reality. All of a sudden things I used to like I don't like anymore. Why does it happen that way? And one thing we don't really understand in our human consciousness is that we create all of it. There's nothing we do not create. There's nothing we don't shape. We just are not shaping it consciously. So if we're not shaping it consciously, then we kind of have a hard time understanding, in a sense, why it happens. We want to put the blame on everything else. It's because of this person. It's because of that person. It's because of I'm being punished. You hear that one a lot. God, I must have done something pretty terrible because I'm being punished. It's karma. A lot of people will throw karma out, and say, oh, it's a karmic thing. That's what's going on. Not really understanding how karma works and how we create it. So we're going to break down how we create a reality. We're going to break down why we create a reality the way we do. We're going to break down what happens in these realities. And why all of a sudden we get these things and we don't know where the hell they came from, because we didn't really expect them to be the way they are. We really didn't expect them to turn out that way, and they're starting to turn out that way. Everything we say means, this is going to be a little contradiction to how I started this. Everything we say with our mouth does not mean anything compared to what our body says, and what our energy field is transmitting out, and what our body frequency is transmitting out. That's always going to be the trump card to anything we create. What we say doesn't mean as much as to what frequency we're translating out. That's why we get into a lot of mixed messaging. We get into a lot of things not turning out the way we wanted them to, because we're saying one thing. So you see this a lot when we talk about people doing affirmations. Affirmations is a very human, our human consciousness gets really into affirmations. If we say it and we say it, we'll create it. Which is only true to a really small extent, because our voice, the words don't matter, the tone, the frequency of what we're saying, that's what creates. So we have to be really mindful. I don't even like the word mindful, but we have to be really conscious of, because mindful goes into the category of, I just lost what I was going to say. Mindful goes into the category of affirmations. Right? You know, it's these very human words we'll use, these very human things that we will attempt to talk about, these very human things that we feel like we understand what we're doing, but we don't. We don't really understand what we're doing because we're still trying to take energetic, metaphysical ideas and shape them into something that's going to make our human life better, which is not what the stuff is there for to do. It's there to pull us out of those realities, raise our body consciousness enough to where we leave those realities behind, not to double down and entrench us in. Our human tries to double down and entrench us in, where, I got so much I can't possibly leave. You see that so much in people who built human realities, where all of a sudden like, I can't leave. You know, I've got too many things. I'll never be able to walk out of this reality. It's too much. It's too much. At the end of the day, it's really not that it's too much. It's that we are so afraid to leave it. We try to we wall ourselves into it. We get, we start sinking a lot of money into a house we know we're going to have to sell. We know deep down somewhere we know we're not going to keep it, but we keep dumping money into it. Because we feel like if we dump enough money into it, now we're going to feel like, oh no, I'll stay. Now I'll be able to stay because I don't have another way. We start getting, more animals. A lot of people will do that. They'll start doubling down on kids too, getting more and more and more and more stuff to make us feel more secure in the reality when we're not really secure in the reality. We just feel like we are, we just feel like we're secure in the reality because of all the external stuff. But there's a reason we're feeling that drive to do the external stuff, because we're so insecure in the reality. So even when we talk about what our field is saying, we also have to be mindful of why are we feeling the need to do all these things? Why am I feeling the need to get all of these things in a certain row? Why do I keep complaining about one thing, not wanting to deal with one thing, so I just get more and more stuff to distractions. When we start dealing with stuff to distract us, we're not dealing with the real reality. The reality of what's really is going on in the reality we've created. We don't want to see it. We don't want to believe that we're going to have to leave this house. We don't want to believe we're going to have to go this way or go that way. We just don't want to have to see it that way. We want to see it a different way. We don't want to have to go down that road. Because going down that road means shifting a lot, and we are not big shifters. Our human consciousness does not want to shift into different realities. So that's when the confusion starts. We start saying all these affirmations, and let me just I'm trying to think of an affirmation that I used to do them years ago myself. We can say we want, we really love ourselves. That's the one you'll see a lot of people put up there. I'm worthy, I'm all this. And they'll say it again and again and again and again. Yet repeatedly, they keep calling for situations where they are devaluing themselves. They keep calling for situations where they're either in a relationship that devalues them, they're at a job that devalues them. They stay in situations where they're not in equal partnerships, which is a big thing that starts to happen when we get into really starting to align realities. We start to see the ones that they're not 100% both ways. We're keeping the reality together because we don't want to let it go. When we stop putting energy into the reality, all of a sudden the thing goes away. We don't want it to go away, so we keep feeding into it. We're not in balance. Balance is kind of the biggest thing we have to really try to understand. And our human consciousness, it's harder for us to do that because we don't want to leave them behind. So finding that balance in the reality, finding the balance in what we're doing to see, is everyone in this reality giving 100% of what they have to give? Or is this reality to show me I'm not standing into my power, I'm not valuing myself, and it's a way for me to start almost living that affirmation? Because when we say it, it's not enough, because our body's still transmitting I'm not worth anything, right? Even if we keep saying we are. There is that old a saying, fake it till you make it. You know, you keep kind of doing the same thing until you convince yourself. And there is a part of that in Ascension where we have to do that. So we're not so much talking about those circumstances. We're really talking about when we are in realities that are not, we're creating realities that are not matching what we're saying. And we don't understand why we keep creating them. Because until we can stand up in these realities where we're not being valued, we're not going to get realities where we get valued. So in a sense, by saying the affirmation, we almost start teeing up realities where we're not doing it to see if we can actually stop these realities. Stopping the realities is what will stop us from creating them. So let's see, let's pick that one apart a little bit. When we stop creating, we stop participating in these realities that we've created. You know, we see, oh wait, I'm not being valued here. You know, I am being treated shitty here. I am the only one doing the work here. And when I stop doing the work, I have a feeling the reality will go away. I've had so many realities, I thought, oh, I'll never be able to get out of this reality. But as soon as my vibration, my body's vibration was higher than that reality, they just completely fade away. They start getting too hard. It starts getting so obvious that there's no balance in the reality, that we're doing all the work. Now, there are some realities we're going to be in where we know we're supposed to do a lion's share of the work. We're paying off karmic debt. We are fulfilling a soul contract with this person. We have soul contracts to be in a certain place. Even though we might not love the place we're at, we know we're supposed to be there to fulfill certain things. But all those things have expiration dates. All the karmic wheel, in a sense, at some point it does break. Our human karma, and then we can work on galactic karma and all our multidimensional karma. But that's a different karmic discussion. But at some point, those realities end. We just don't want to let them go because they don't end the way we want them to. We want them to have this fairy tale ending where they work out how our human consciousness wants to see it work out. We want that physical ending that we can picture that makes it look successful. That's what's going to bite you in the bum every time you try to end a reality. Start a new one, looking at these realities and saying, I want it to look a certain way. I want it to end a certain way. It gets into the whole fallacy of closure. I want it to be a certain way. I don't want it to end. I don't want it to end the way it looks like it's going to end. You know, I want it different. I want something that feels more successful from a human perspective. And those are the things that trip us up for a long time, because soul-aligned realities that are closing out in the highest aligned manner, for a while, they don't feel successful. They don't feel highest aligned to our human because they didn't end the way we wanted them to. That doesn't mean we could have closed it on any other way at that point. We can only close the reality out at the consciousness we are at when we close the reality out. Sometimes we don't even physically say, okay, I'm going to close it out. We just walk away from it. In the beginning, you're going to walk away from a lot because we don't have the consciousness yet. We don't have the knowledge. We haven't remembered enough on what we're really doing to know how to close it out. So we just leave that shit behind. Leave the keys in the door to the house, leave the keys in the door to everything, and just walk away. We don't know what to do. We don't know how to fix it. We don't even know how to fix it anymore. We tried to fix it, that didn't work. So we're throwing fixing out the door, and we might have heard the term alignment, but we sure as fuck don't know how to align it from a soul-aligned reality perspective yet. And sometimes aligning it from a soul-aligned place in that moment is to not participate in it. And if we don't know how to close it out, to completely cut off that program in a sense, we will have to kind of put a pin in it and revisit it another time, whether it be that exact reality or one with a very similar energetic makeup, see if we can close it out. But that will come later. We don't get those realities right away. We kind of get the past to be able to just walk away from them. So if you're in the phase of walking away from a lot of them, that's an important part of the process, because that also does say, without saying it, I'm better than this reality. And not a better than as comparison, but I'm not respected here. I deserve more. And so does possibly everyone else in the reality. You know, we're not doing anyone a favor staying in a reality where we don't feel valued, and then we are putting pressure on that whole reality for it to be something it's not supposed to be. We've had this discussion lots of times. Being in realities that are supposed to show us something, and as soon as we see what it's supposed to show us, Now we're going to try to flip it and make it something else. And 9 times out of 10, if you're dealing with human consciousness, others in that reality, and that's the main consciousness they are going with, it's not their time to ascend, they're not interested in that. We can't now shift that whole reality to be what we want it to be. That's not what it was designed to be. It was designed to show us something. It was designed for us to clear programming. It was designed for us to show us what our body is still transmitting out, not what we're saying. You know, our body's transmission is super literal. It is super literal. I remember I said one thing one time, that I remember this specifically about this person, a certain person I wanted to meet, and I think I met someone exactly like that maybe like 2 months later, and it was the whole karmic disaster. And it was the one time I said, wow, I really, sometimes we'll get that, where we'll say something, we'll get exactly what we thought we wanted. But because our body transmission is still mucking up, it doesn't turn out that way. Because our body transmission is transmitting out our program. And until we deal with the program, saying a lot of stuff and saying a lot of affirmations, it doesn't mean anything. The only thing it does is call in realities to show us we're not doing that. Or show us in these realities where we're participating in currently that we're not doing that. So kind of stop saying that, because we're not doing that. I can say it all I want to. Action is what shifts. Words don't shift, because the frequency of the word is not what we're saying. And we are kind of held to task by that. Our universe is going to hold us to task. It's the law of creation, of how we create a reality. It can only create what we're giving off. It doesn't really matter what we say. And a lot of people will contradict that in a sense and say, well, I can say, you know, I can manifest this if I say it. I can manifest this and I say it. And there's a reason in the beginning. Sometimes we will say certain things. Not so much the deeper how we feel about ourselves, but maybe just wanting something. You know, I want this job, and I'll get it, right? And it's like, how did that happen? I said I wanted that job and I got it. Did I create that? Well, of course we created it. We called that job in. What you'll find is, it's not exactly what you thought it was going to be, because the reality of which that job got created is the reality of which our program, our energy field is transmitting out to teach us whatever it is we need to be taught to clear more programming, to then raise our body vibration to get a new reality. That's how it works. So we can say we want this, say we want this person. That's what I did. And then I got, what I had was a huge clearing and a big shit show for like 7 months. So yes, I got exactly what I said I wanted, but I couldn't, it wasn't what I thought it was going to be, because my body was not at a transmission to give me that. I couldn't create that. I couldn't, and even if I had known that, the words I even said were distorted. Sometimes you go back and look at, you know, it goes into that old adage, be careful what you wish for. Because when you go back and look at some of the stuff we asked for, when we're in our human consciousness, and I was still very much in a human consciousness at the time I did that, we don't know what we're saying. Just like in the show Shogun, when he said that, he didn't mean that. He really didn't understand what he was saying. But in that sense, he was held to task by what he said, because he was that important in that household that whatever he said, that's what we have to do. We don't have a choice. You know, that's what we have to do. You're the same way with your universe. Your word is, that's it. You know, your universe is going to do exactly what you say it's going to do. But the higher aspects of us is what more is showing us what we're really asking for. Because we don't understand that. You know, in our human consciousness, we don't understand that. So yeah, we'll get some stuff. Because one, it's kind of that gateway to show you, hey, this stuff does work. If we try any of this stuff, whether it be manifesting or we try, you know, tapping into certain different energies, if we try Reiki, if we don't ever see any shifts, we will say, well, it's bullshit, none of it's doing anything. In the beginning, we gain a lot of ground because we weren't really participating in any of it. So we start to see what we can do. those realities don't end how we thought they would end because our transmission is still program clearing. I can say any reality I want. The underlying energetics of that reality is what my body is creating, not what my mouth is saying. It's just going to give it some kind of form. It was going to make it look a certain way. But we have to go deeper than how it looks, because that's going to be the key as to what are we really saying. Why am I calling all this stuff forth? To stand in my power, to respect myself more, do whatever it is we're trying to do. Why do I keep getting these realities where I have to say and do repeatedly these things over and over and over again? Because we have to break the program. In the beginning, sometimes it's kind of easy. You have to stand up for yourself in realities you don't really give too much of a shit about. It's because I got double charged for a yoga program. I'm just going to make some shit up now. And I have to say that's not correct, or I have to stand up to maybe an acquaintance that's being disrespectful. And it's a little easier in those. In the beginning, it won't feel easier, but it's easier, the kind of training realities in a sense. Because if we can't stand up for ourselves with these people we have no emotional attachment to, we have no reality really creation with, they're kind of just minor acquaintances in a reality. Okay, eventually you'll be able to do those. You'll be able to, and maybe in the beginning you can't even do those. And a lot of us were there too. So there's no judgment in where we are. It's just seeing where we are. But a lot of times we get reality after reality after reality, because if we don't, then we don't have that training ground to really start to pick it up. Let me really pick this up. Let me see if I can't do this now with this person I don't have any emotional attachment to, then I can't do it later with, my boyfriend or girlfriend or husband or wife or boss. I don't have a shot at that, or my parents or my siblings or whatever it is. If I can't stand up here, then, no reason to go plant a flag anywhere else. There's no point in that. I can't plant a flag anywhere else if I can't even plant a flag over here. And toe that line in the sand on what's respectful and what's not. Our human consciousness does not know what respect is. It knows human respect. It does not know soul respect. It's a whole different respect level. And it's a whole different, because you will say someone can respect you in a human capacity, but that's not what you get into. The farther you go into ascension, you start to understand soul respect. And that's also letting others go do what they need to do and not trying to hold them into a reality where they don't want to be. And they show you they don't want to be there because they're no longer putting any energy into it, and you'll be the one doing all the energy into it. And like I say, for a while we know we're supposed to do that. For a while we're supposed to carry the water in some realities. But they all have an expiration date. All those realities end. Eventually we're not supposed to do them anymore. And because it gets harder and harder and harder, the other people in the reality are doing less and less and less because they're not sure they want to be in the reality anymore. So once we drop all the water bottles we're carrying, we realize, oh wait, I'm the only one here. I'm the only one left in the reality. Everyone else bailed because they didn't want to have to pick up their own water and carry it. So why am I still here? And those are questions we have to ask. Wait, why am I still here? Why am I still doing this? What is going on with me? And until we can really dissect what's going on with us, what am I transmitting out? We can ask those questions of our universe. I can say this and I might still get this, but I'm not getting it the way I thought I was going to get it. I'm getting it a different way. I'm getting it with this distortion to it. I'm not getting what I really thought I wanted. Because we're not really honest about what we wanted. We're not really clear because we don't understand how we're creating them. The words don't create it. We feel like that's what creates it because we'll get something similar to what we said. We're just kind of tuning it up. We're framing it a little bit, like I would always say, you can always tell when we get into the twin flames and we get into that whole matrix and that whole karmic timelines with the twin flames, a lot of them all look the same. All of mine looked almost exactly the same, and that we call it with a type. Everyone has a type. Yeah, all mine look the same, very similar, and you'll start noticing that. One way it was easier for us to pick them out, so we kind of made them easy for us to pick them out in a lineup. We didn't have to sit there and figure it out too much which one belonged to us when we started going into. When we start going into the more conscious we become, sometimes these people have to go through some twin flame relationships to clear that matrix, to clear that programming, to clear those distortions, because those are the people that can still get to us when other people no longer can. But we always have no problem taking them out because they all kind of look the same. We make it that way on purpose. You know, we're kind of funny how simple our realities have been that we create, in a sense. Our human mind wants to make them so complicated. It wants to make them so diabolical. It wants to make them so deep. It wants to make them so complicated. You know, or we want to dissect every little thing everyone's trying to do in their reality when it's really not that complicated. We call forth people to do certain things, they do it, and that's it. That's the end of it. Every reality we create, everyone in our reality is an aspect of us to show us what we need to clear, to help us clear it, and they move on and we move on. That's it. Everything else we're adding to it is just our human mind trying to make it make sense. Why would that person do that? Why would this happen this way? Why? Now, that unconscious part of us is what starts to drive us to consciousness, because we don't, after so many of these, we're like, well, I don't even understand why this keeps happening. Maybe I'll understand more later. Maybe if I get into reading these self-help books, I start reading all these books, some shit will make more sense. You know, something else will come forth. Something else will all of a sudden click, you know. We're trying to find that click. And when you get certain clicks, you know it. You know when you ask a question, you get the answer. We might not like the answer we get. We might have wanted a relationship with that person, or we might wanted to have moved to this space, or we might want to travel the world, but we might know right now we're not supposed to do that. Right now we have other commitments, in a sense. Our soul has bound us to something else right now. We can't leave right now. It's not the right time yet. The issue we get into with our human consciousness is we kind of know it's not the right time, but we try to push it because we don't want to wait for the right time. We don't want to wait for the alignment. So we're like, oh, I'm just going to keep barreling forward. Because the more I barrel forward, then I'll start getting to, oh, okay, now it's the right time. Now it's the right time for me to go do all these things. And before it wasn't the right time for me to do all these things. Pushing it forward just gets us into a parallel reality, in a sense, of a timeline that doesn't work out the way we thought it was going to work out, because the energy of which we're pushing it now shifts the whole timeline. You know, the minute we try to manipulate the timeline, we're now manipulating everything that has to do with it. We're trying to bring it when we're not ready, and it's not going to end the way we wanted it to. Patience is a virtue, and it is for sure necessary when you are in your ascension process, your awakening process, because all these things take time. They don't, everyone just wants it right away, you know, but we're not ready for it right away, because it goes so far against our human consciousness and those realities that when we say, I want it right away, and all of a sudden we have to realize, but I'm not ready for that. And you'll understand that more the farther you go, and looking back on where you were to realize you weren't ready for that information at that point. You didn't want to know everything you created was going to come down. You still wanted to believe you could fix it because that's what kept us going. What keeps us going is thinking we can, that we can retrofit it, we can make it better. Not that we're going to have to give it up. Now, I will always say that when we have to give it up, let the reality go, a lot, you know, close it out in the highest place we can in that moment, in the highest consciousness we can. When we do that, what we do realize is, okay, now I can go forward. It's time for me to move on. We don't really care anymore. And that doesn't mean we won't grieve it. It doesn't mean we won't have some sadness and be clearing the sadness that's still left, that held that reality together for us. But deep down, we understand that it's gone as far as it's going to go. Nothing can resuscitate this thing, you know. Now, it doesn't mean we won't get some of these people back in a different timeline. Won't get some of these realities back in a different timeline, a different frequency. When we're in a different frequency, we want everyone else to change, but we don't want to have to change. We want everyone else in our reality to shift, but we don't want to shift. Because if we shift, the whole reality has to go. Unless everyone shifts with us, and very rarely, in my experience, does that happen. because everyone's on their own time frame. Everyone's got their own realities to do. Some people aren't ready for ascension. It's not their time to do it yet. When it's their time, it's their time. It's not their time yet. They still have human realities they want to do. They want to get married. They want to have kids. They want to, do whatever that they still feel like they need to do. They're not ready for this yet. And that's the hardest part for us to grasp is, well, why are you not ready for this? Why can't we move forward together, all of us together? Humans always want to go together. Everyone's got to go together. We can't separate. Ascension is about separation in a sense. Well, it's about separating from the human consciousness to then whole again in the higher consciousness. But we have to separate from the human stuff. That's why a lot of it starts to fall away so fast. Because we cannot exit those worlds and become whole again when we're still entrenched in them. We can't try to figure out higher line realities and figuring out what works and what's aligned and what's not so aligned and what are we trying to get to. Raising our consciousness, raising our body's vibration, and stay all entrenched in the human realities. We have to disconnect to connect within ourselves. We can't stay in the disconnected realities and connect within. We try to do that in the beginning with some meditation. And what we realize we're doing after a while is we'll connect for a little while to higher consciousness, higher aspects of us. It still feels like it's above us because we're not bringing it down. We're not anchoring it in. We're just connecting, and then we disconnect and go on with our day. And people are like, oh, I can't hold it. Well, we're not trying. In a way, you're not trying to hold it. And you don't have the capacity to hold it yet because you're not setting in it long enough. You're still engrossed in all the other human stuff. So when we're engrossed in all the other human stuff, there's nothing for us to hold on to anymore. It's all kind of a big blurry mess. So no matter where you're at with any of your realities, there is a reason you're in that place. You're either going to align it, you're going to walk away from it, you're going to close it out, you're going to just shift the whole thing. It's not that it can't happen. I've seen some realities shift, but they don't shift overnight. We have to shift. We have to hold that shift long enough to see if everyone else can shift with us. Sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. It also depends where everybody else is. And that's not the part we want to hear. We want everyone else to be where we are. It's like it used to be so easy in our human consciousness to find people aligned because we're looking at very superficial things to align with. We're looking at, we can love, I've said you can love someone's energy, but you might not be able to deal with their consciousness. You can love somebody's consciousness, but you might not like their energy. They're two separate things in a sense. There are some people we might love to create with because of the consciousness they bring, but we don't really want to be around them all the time. And other people, we love their energy. We love the way they make it, they feel, their energy feels to us, but we can't take the unconscious level they're operating at. And it doesn't work. When we're looking in our human, we used to think it was so hard, but we're trying to find someone that in our human consciousness that agrees with, how we feel about life, agrees with our goals, agrees with our politics, agrees with religion, whatever it was for us. Everyone had a different thing they wanted that was important to them. And when you get into what's important, from a consciousness perspective and higher line realities from our higher aspects, it's a lot more difficult because consciousness shifts. Our consciousness shifts. What's aligned before is not aligned anymore. Vibrational alignment is all we're looking for. And that might not last more than 20 minutes. Then it's not aligned anymore. It might last 20 years, with a lot of little shifts in between. Because the consciousness of the person is what we're looking for. And being able to be with them in that sense and understand our part, and they understand their part, and everyone be open to that. And that's a lot harder. It's a lot harder to do, and there's a frustration in that for a long time with us because we're looking for that and we can't find it. It's not so much you're lonely, you just want to have that connection in a sense, and that's really where it starts to come down. You just miss the connection, and we just have to keep connecting deeper in until we can find that, because we can only connect with someone as far as we're connected within ourselves, and how far they can only connect with us, how far they're connected within themselves. So we start to see the kind of secular nature of it and why it it can feel like, wow, this is the toughest thing we have to do. And anyone aligning realities with other people and trying to establish relationships, higher consciousness, soul aligned realities, relationships, knows how difficult that is, because there's so many variables that go into play there. It's so many things we look for, and so many things are important. So, all right, I think that's a pretty good, okay, I think we're good here. I don't have any questions, so I think I'm gonna end it for today unless I have any questions. I don't know if I will. And I think that'll be it for today. I might try to come back and start doing Saturdays again. Maybe not every Saturday. I'll have to see. I'll be doing a lot more stuff during the eclipse in a few weeks. So I will be more online for that. On all the platforms, I'll be doing lives during the eclipses. I feel like this will be a big eclipse. 2024 has been kind of a strange year. We were kind of in a holding pattern for a lot of the year. Then it felt like the year was getting sped up. Then it gets slowed down again. A lot of clearings this year. A lot of what it feels like waiting around for realities that you felt were coming in to come in. Even the ones you've tried to start, they're just not getting any traction. Even though you knew you're supposed to do certain activities this year and they're not getting traction. Don't be too discouraged by that. I think all of us are feeling that. All of us are feeling that type of we kind of want to get that running start. We're at the starting gate, but the gun won't go off. We're just waiting and like, well, what's going on? And then other times we feel like, wow, it feels like we're in June and we're still in March. Whereas we're starting to feel the clearings for 2025 come in, but we haven't even really started 2024 template yet. Or we're actually putting a lot of boots on the ground in that template of what we thought we were going to do. So it's just how it is for everybody right now. So don't be discouraged. All right, I'll see everyone later. Bye.